Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this live broadcast on our 13 Now digital platform. I'm Tom Lewis. Hey, thanks for tuning in today. We are going to spend about the next hour or so talking with a couple of local folks here about COVID, the virus, the spike that we're experiencing recently, as well as how that's going to play into the beginning of school. I'm joined, of course, by Bay District School Superintendent Bill Husfelt, as well as a local physician, Dr. Frank Merritt. Guys, thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us, Tom.
Appreciate y'all being here.
Thank you.
Let's jump right into it. The spike has really come back. This whole thing's kind of come back with a vengeance in the last 2, 3, 4 weeks, and it's really spiked the number of cases in the area. Dr. Merritt, let's start with you. I mean, I don't think anybody, I think there was expected to be a surge towards the tail end of the summer, but was it expected to be this bad?
Well, number one, let me say this. Every day we pray for everybody around the world because nobody has been untouched by this. Even people that haven't personally had COVID or hadn't had anybody, they've been affected in other ways. And so, the big thing I like to say is that we're all in this together, whether political party, whether your ethnicity group, and all, I think we're just all in this together. So this is unprecedented times, Tom, for our generation, for sure. I mean, did the people in 1918 with the Spanish flu that went through World War I, World War II, the Great Depression, those guys would know what this feels like. But as far as for us, this is unprecedented times. And to answer the question it's hard to guess when something's never happened to us before. I will tell you that myself and other local doctors and scientists predicted this would be with us for 3 to 5 years. If it was just naturally occurring, kind of like the Spanish flu of 1918, that it would wax and wane. There would be surges and regressions of it. There would be mutant strains that would come out. Some would be weaker, some would be stronger. So when you look at all the things that all together, you look at virology, you look at human behavior, how people want to get it back out and not be limited in what they can do and how they live. Yes, we all predicted this would happen. I had a bunch of phone calls over the last, 6 weeks, especially where my friend said, you nailed it. And I guess at this time last year, I was going through my own personal COVID experience where I was treated at a hospital at home type situation, had oxygen brought to my house, and for about 3 or 4 days was kind of on the verge of maybe passing away myself. So last year I said, you watch this. This will happen again next year, at least in Florida, because all the tourists come down here and it becomes, an auger plate, so to speak, from a microbiology point of view. And everybody comes down here, so we spread germs. And not just with COVID, we've always been a place, airports and vacation areas obviously mix a lot of germs that hadn't been mixed previously. So yes, we kind of predicted this would happen at this time. Did we think it'd be this bad? Didn't really know that, Tom. It depended on what variant came out. I think the fact that it is as bad or worse than it was last year, it tells you the Delta variant is stronger because we've already had people that have natural immunization through having it, like myself. We have other people that have been vaccinated, so, artificial immunization. And we also have a lot of people that were kind of older or weaker that unfortunately have passed away with the first year of COVID. So those people have been removed out of the equation, and this is now affecting a stronger group of people. We know it's affecting a younger group of people. Is that because older people have been vaccinated or had it last year? But the fact that we can have the same numbers or higher numbers today than we had a year ago after all those things tells you this is a pretty impressive variant. So yes, I think a lot of us unfortunately predicted this could happen.
Well, Dr. Merritt, you're exactly right. Of course, you put a lot of insight in there for us that I didn't know about for sure. But then the last thing you said there about how this is attacking younger people is really kind of the whole reason we're here today with Superintendent Husfelt. It's kind of a double-edged sword, Bill. I mean, you've got, you want the economy and you want life to get back to normal, but you also want to protect people. Your task in this situation with both. You want to make sure your teachers get back in the classroom, your kids get back in the classroom, but again, you want to make sure they're doing that safely. So it's a tough act for you.
It's a huge thing. That's why Dr. Merritt, and just so everyone knows, we're friends. We talk all the time. We've had conversations regularly for a long time now, and he is so spot on with everything that he's sharing with us. I know he knows all this. He's studied. He's one of the smartest people I know. And our challenge is this, as you said, the economy. I talked to parents at lunch today. They had their 4 kids with them. The dad's an officer in the military, mom's stay-at-home mom, and they're adamant. They want school to start. They want school to get back in, and they have their own COVID experience, like Dr. Merritt talked about. We're going to go through this, and Frank, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but didn't you tell me this could go on for another 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, God only knows, but I think if it's a naturally occurring situation, once again, history tells us a lot about the future. So when you look at the Spanish flu and even some other things, there were some coronaviruses back in the early 2000s. We see that this will wax and wane for 2 to 3 years. Unfortunately, there are some speculations and some good information out there that there's some artificial stuff added to this virus, and I don't know the intentions, and I won't say to the intentions of why that was done. But that's really the scarier thought, is if those artificial things actually make this live longer than something like the Spanish flu did back in 1918. But going with just the natural phenomenon and how viruses behave and human behavior, I think we're going to have to start, and we'll talk about this a little later, hopefully, but Bill and I talk a lot. I talk to Neil Dunn, who's always talking about strategies. And I think what we're going to have to do as Americans, no matter what party and stuff like that, or if we have a job that we got to get to, or kids or whatever, we're going to start building strategies when we have surges and when we have relaxed times that we can actually go do more. And that's what Bill and I have talked a lot about.
The task for you, Bill, is obviously protecting kids. Last year, we more or less shut down the schools, or at least gave parents the option to keep the kids home and learn remotely. This year, we're going to try and go back full bore. What sort of challenges does that pose?
Well, we've got to be spot on with our strategies for identifying and for quarantining. I mean, that's first and foremost. We did that. We've even done that during the summer. We have bay-based programs that did it in the summer, and we had some summer school programs that did that. But I'm not pretending to be the expert. There is no way I even want to. I feel overwhelmed with Dr. Merritt on one side of me and you on the other. You guys are so far ahead of my understanding of this virus. But I do understand this. Our children are better off and safer in school than they are at home. The studies we've seen have proved that. They are so far behind, and mentally, and the challenges they had at home are worse. They weren't getting fed. They weren't being watched over by the safety protocols that we have in place to take care and protect our children. And so we know overall our children are going to be safer in school. Now, does that mean they're not going to get the virus? No, I'm going to give you a personal story. And Frank, your personal story, you've barely touched on it. Let's just say this. We're blessed to have you here with us right now, and I know you know that, and I know you thank the good Lord every day that he spared you. But I had a grandson go to a church soccer camp. He brought COVID home, gave it to his sister, and gave it to his mother this summer. And it's, thank the good Lord, they had a little fever, a little headache. My daughter put some kind of essential oil on him. She said he never complained another minute. He wasn't going to touch that oil again. He was fine after that. So, but and look, when I say these things, I'm not making light of this. What I'm saying is we're all going to experience it. There's not any family out there or any individual out there that hasn't had either a family member or a friend suffer and or die from this already. Mm-hmm. And so we have to make a decision as a society. Where do we draw the line? Do we close up everything again? I'm telling you, the people I talk to do not want to close up the businesses again.
I don't think anybody wants to go back to what we had last year. But again, you also want to make sure everybody's safe. And so it's like I said, it's almost a tightrope that everybody's having to walk to make sure. And we have the same conversations around here. Should we go back to having our reporters wear masks in the field? Maybe not to protect the reporters as much as it is to send a message to other people that they need to be more careful. And so everybody, I think, is at least this is at top of mind right now, especially with the latest surge, about what's the right tack to take. And that's kind of why we're sitting here today. What should parents know about this? Dr. Merritt, let me ask you this. Why is it, and I know you're not privy to all the big pharma and what they're doing with research and everything else, but why is it that this vaccine isn't necessarily safe for kids to have now anyway?
Well, number one, this vaccine has gotten more press because COVID has gotten more press. I mean, obviously, it's the biggest pandemic we've had in over 100 years. So this vaccine is getting a lot more scrutiny. When really vaccines, a lot of people are saying this vaccine hasn't been tested enough. Actually, it's probably the world's most tested vaccine at this point because of sheer numbers, because COVID is so big. So it probably is the most tested already, not time-wise, but people-wise. And I was one of the first ones to get it back in December, and I had a pretty bad reaction, so much so that they told me not to get the second one. So I've been on that side too. I think the thing at this point is all of our vaccines, from birth to people in healthcare getting their hepatitis and other stuff like that, they're always being re-engineered and hopefully made better and made cleaner and made stronger to provide immunizations throughout our life. And so this vaccine, people say, well, this is just too new. So is the latest flu vaccine. The flu vaccine comes out every year, and everybody just rolls up their sleeve and takes that one. I don't do the flu. Yeah, I don't do the flu. I'll tell you something, Tom. I don't do the flu vaccine because we have Tamiflu and other, influenza medicines that I can take if I get it. So I don't get that vaccine. We don't have an effective, Tamicovid that I can take after I get COVID. So I did roll up my sleeve and get this. So this to me, even though that I got so very sick with the vaccine, and that's because my having the disease was really my first shot. So after I had a profound response, my doctors and we said, no, we're not going to do a second shot. And we tested my M spike protein, which is what you test. And it's doing great. It's still real high. My antibodies are still high from last year's disease. So, hopefully I'm immune, but, so I'm still doing this by Zoom because of the surge. I think the thing is this vaccine is probably, in all fairness, probably the safest, cleanest vaccine that we've ever produced, even with a quick timeline. Other vaccines have taken dead viruses or weakened viruses, but it's the whole virus. It's not just the mRNA in the virus. And so the other vaccines did have mRNA in them, but it was just inside either a dead virus or a weakened one. This one, the great thing about this is they took the mRNA out and made it cleaner by not having the rest of the viral body, so to speak. And they also decreased the amount of preservatives that are in there and other additives that a lot of those things have. So it actually is cleaner. Now, is it perfect? No, nothing on this earth is perfect. But, me and my wife, we got the vaccine. For anybody that doesn't have contraindications, I will tell you, go get the vaccine. That's the number one strategy that we've got to have, is we've got a vaccine out there that is not perfect. But I can tell you something. Of the people that are being hospitalized, as of last night, 11,500 Floridians are hospitalized with COVID. We've had almost 40,000 Floridians die from COVID. This thing is real, my friends. It's going to continue to be real. The number one strategy is to get vaccinated. If you put the vaccine against having COVID, and some people say, well, I just won't get COVID. I said it last year. You can only run and hide so long from this thing. Now, a lot of friends that are getting this second wave surge are calling me saying, you said you're not going to be able to run and hide. You're going to either get the vaccine, in my opinion, or you're going to get the disease. And if you look at those two data, you're better off to go ahead and get the vaccine. But once again, that needs to be something everybody discusses with their doctor, looks at their morbidities or their disease conditions and make sure they don't have any contraindications. But as far as my boys are 12 and 14, and we just got them tested the other day at Quest to see if they have antibodies. If they have antibodies, we're going to let them go back to school. If they don't have antibodies, they're both going to get the vaccine.
Okay, now you said they're 14 and 12?
Yes, sir.
And the cutoff date for the vaccine is 12 and up, isn't that correct?
Yes, sir.
So what happens if somebody's got a 10 or 11-year-old child and they say, I don't care, I want to get the vaccine? I mean, is any doctor going to give it to them, or are they going to recommend not to give it to them? Why can't kids have the vaccine at this point? I know that hasn't been tested, but what's the danger?
Well, I don't know if they're doing testing on it right now, but Tom, that's a great question. It takes time to test. So when I got my shot in December, I knew that pregnant, pediatrics, people who had already had the disease had not been tested with it. We knew that going into it. So myself and other healthcare providers, frontline, heroes, and as they call us, until we get COVID, we were the first trial group, and we had to report back what happened to us. Mm-hmm. And I will say Moderna. I got the Moderna shot. And they were very, very inquisitive into what happened to me in my course and how bad. And I let them know that I wasn't getting the second one, but I was going to be responsible and check my M spike proteins. So the first strategy is everybody that doesn't have a contraindication should get vaccinated. And I know there's a lot of politics and a lot of faith system stuff that's kind of thrown into this as well. And I think what we need to do is, whether you're a Christian, an atheist, you're Democrat, Republican, we need to leave all that stuff to the side right now. And we need to just look at the data. Are you going to do better if you get COVID or you don't? And my wife and I were different. Bill was talking about, with his family, my wife got sniffles and a bad headache for 3 days. And I'm sitting here trying to get enough oxygen. And both of us ran marathons and everything else before that. It's just so strange how it hits different people. And you don't know what you have as far as inside your body on your chromosomes that are going to match up with this until you do get COVID. So you really are, you're pulling the bar and seeing what you get when you get COVID. And it's a very, very sad situation. Let me talk about real quick, Tom, just kind of lead into this. Here I'm looking at the flag system outside my house right here. Today it's a yellow flag. We have green, yellow, red, and double red. And those things tell you what kind of caution you should have going into the ocean. Number one, you should always be cautious. But if you got a green day, you get to pretty much do everything you want to. Yellow, you need to restrict some. Red, you really need to think about if you need to go in the ocean. Double red, nobody's going in the ocean. And you talk about a mandate. No, nobody's allowed to go in the ocean, and they will arrest you if you go in the ocean. We need to develop a strategy based on the number of people that have it and the severity of the people that have it, and the prevalence and the incidence. I tell people all the time, 2 months ago, my family and I, we went to the restaurant for the first time in a year. And it felt so good, Tom. We were giddy because we're like, we're in a restaurant. I think we tipped the lady like 25% because we were so happy to be in a restaurant again. And we went back to church too, and it was so great to be around people and to hug people. But 2 months ago, the incidence and prevalence in this area was so low that you could calculate the relative risk and know that it wasn't really risky to go to church and hug people or go out to dinner. Now, I'm doing this by Zoom with you guys today because it's a totally different situation. And so just like the ocean changes, we need to have a strategy system in the United States and at the state level, and most importantly, I think at the county level. Governor DeSantis said earlier, maybe it was last year, that he wanted every county to make their own decisions because, what Bill has to think about up here in Bay County is different than what Miami-Dade needs to think about. So I agree with that when he said that he's going to let every county think for itself. But, right now we're looking at red, double red. And maybe the strategy is to delay school 2 weeks. And maybe it is to do masks in school for 2 weeks. But, this is going to be with us for a couple of years. So we can't have people say masks are always wrong or masks are always right or we don't need to go to school ever and we do this school. We've got to have an algorithmic platform that's based on numbers and on severity and a little bit of common sense, just like we have a flag system. And that would be so helpful to all kind of governments, to Bill and other districts. And, I work in a consultant role with companies, helping them with strategies as far as that. So to be able to take those numbers and plug them in and every day or every week come out with what is the best decision, what's the strategy based on this. And I'll tell you, I am for, and this is very unpopular, but I'm for delaying school 2 weeks right now And I had old coach Bill. You like this? This is a great Mississippi Delta coach's saying. He said, "Do it right, do it light, do it wrong, do it long." His point was, we're going to stay here all night if y'all don't start running these plays right. But I say it all the time here. We're in the middle of a surge. The data tells us this Delta variant is faster at everything it does. It from admission to the hospital to intubation, it's quicker, shorter time period. From intubation to death is quicker. From, for people recovering and healing is quicker. For kind of losing its power and the surge being over, like if you look at the UK, it's quicker there too. So we're in the middle of the biggest surge that Florida has ever had. And so my worry is to take kids, and Bill talked about his kids going to the camp, and we've seen this at BBS or camps or whatever, soccer, to take this and remix into the school system right while we've got a fire going. There's no need to put in kerosene or gas on the fire. I think if we could do it right, we do it light. I think if we could take a couple weeks off, if we could have business owners, the Chamber of Commerce, other people, kind of the local place say, this makes sense for us. We're having the effects of all the tourists being down here, the surge. Let's get the surge down. Let's really tighten down for a couple of weeks. This is a double red flag. Let's tighten it down for a couple of weeks, and then guess what we can do? Then hopefully we can open it up, put the green flag out. But I really do remember Coach Kelly, do it right, do it light, do it wrong, do it long. I personally would like to see us, back off for a couple of weeks, let this surge burn itself out like it did in the UK, and then guess what? We can go back to restaurants. We can go back to churches. Maybe some of us can go to some football games this fall. Every American wants life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. There's nobody who wants to be shut down, locked down, or whatever like that. So the point is, what's the information telling us? How can we get a strategy that gets us back to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness the quickest and the safest?
Obviously, you guys didn't get together before this session because I don't think you're going to shut down school for 2
No,
weeks.
we have talked. Like I said, we're friends.
I know.
And I've reached out to health professionals in the area, and we talk regularly. I mean, some of the emails I get, I'll get one email 1 minute that tells me to do this, and I get another email the other minute that tells me to do just the
exactly
opposite.
opposite.
And that's part of the problem we have. And I think that's where you started your answer, Doc, is, Republican, Democrat, atheist, Christian, white, it doesn't make any difference. We have nobody in this country that all of us can look up to and trust. We don't. I mean, we're as divided as we've ever been. Probably, I wasn't around, but I'd say the Civil War. We're as divided as we've ever been. And I hate it. I hate it for what our kids see, but I hate it more because we don't have an expert that's willing to stand up. He's the only one I know that's going to go on record and say this. I would like the hospitals to come up and tell us what they think we should do. The health department, Sandon and I are great friends. I've asked him, and I've told him time and time again, Sandon, if you think we need to close schools or if you think we should delay start at any time, not just now, but any time, you tell us. We're all about doing what you want to tell us to do. Mm-hmm. And so we trust these professionals and these hospitals and these doctors and these experts. But I know also the parents are depending on us, and the businesses are depending on us to open back up. Here's what I know happens. When I cancel school because of weather, mm-hmm. I get people mad at me right and left because their businesses have to close and they can't open up, and I catch it. So I'm very particular about making sure I have all the facts, I get all the information. If Dr. Merritt could say I'm speaking for hospital A, B, or C, or whatever, I'd take it to the board tomorrow and say this is what the hospital said to do. Mm-hmm. But I can't get that kind of power up the chain to come back and tell me that.
That's a good question. Why is it that we're not getting the kind of information from the state, from federal officials that we probably should need to make these kind of decisions? I mean, the COVID dashboard that we had here in Florida, that got taken down about, 4 or 5 months ago. No reason to bring that back. Why is there a lack of information?
Let me interject with one more thing, along with what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Superintendents all had a conference. We have several conference calls, and we were all together about a month ago, and then we had a conference call last week. The Commissioner of Education was supposed to be on there, but his staff was. We've asked for one thing. Okay, we know the governor doesn't want masks. We want you to give us written protocols for quarantining. So all 67 districts are doing the exact same thing. Just send us whatever you do, send it to us. We'll do whatever you tell us to do. We can't get that. We can't get the state to, all the health departments to agree to send it to us to do what, you know, we're not medical experts.
Right.
Tell us how you want us to implement the quarantining when it starts. And we know we did quarantine last year. We know we're going to do it again. But that's the kind of thing that I get frustrated about. Now, you have the dashboard question, but it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the, you know, the lack of information. It's frustrating for us. We have people calling us up here saying, why aren't you reporting more about this? Well, we can't get information. The hospitals are reluctant to say anything about it. The health department's reluctant to say anything about it because they answer to the folks in Tallahassee. And, you know, it's frustrating the lack of information that's coming out about this, as serious as of a health crisis as it is. And it's got to be even worse in your situation where you're trying to make decisions about people's lives. Kids, I mean, you have thousands of kids in the school system. You've got over 1,000, well over 1,000 teachers. I think, how many teachers you got? 3,000 teachers?
No, about 1,400.
1,400. Okay.
But we have over 3,000 employees.
But you got, I was going to say, a bunch of employees.
And this is a big thing about them. This is why we have done everything we can to encourage the vaccines, like Dr. Merritt's talking about. And we have. And here's the thing. And some people are mad because I haven't said, by God, you need to get the vaccine, you get the vaccine. Mm-hmm. I have learned that you don't get in people's face and tell them what to do. You give them information, you try to guide them, and you persuade them into it. And so that's been my tack all along is that, look, if you want my opinion, get the vaccine. Here's the information you need to do. You need to follow up. Doc, what's the percentage of people in the hospital right now unvaccinated?
You know, if you look around the United States, more so in the Southeast, it looks like it's less than 10% are vaccinated. Of people that are hospitalized, it looks like less than 10% are vaccinated. This is largely 9% or greater people that are unvaccinated. And listen, my heart goes out to them. I mean, people, the people that didn't get vaccinated thought, hey, this is a one-time surge. We're out of this. I didn't get it. Maybe I'll just make it through. And when I tell people this is going to be with us probably for another few years, that makes people, think different. When I went to college, and my preacher, Daniel Cherry, just reminded me of this, the first thing we learned in psychiatry or psychology was the way people, speak and behave seems normal to them. so even if it's abnormal, we all think we're normal. And so it's interesting that, I think that what we've got is we've got a nation where everybody's attacking each other. And that makes everybody, especially with social media, that's a big part of this, is everybody can sit here and talk. There's so much misinformation. There's so much mistrust going on. My thing is, I think most all healthcare workers, and I want to say healthcare workers that work in hospitals, okay? If you don't work in a hospital, or you're not a pediatrician, or you're not a primary care doctor, you probably got a skewed perception because you're not seeing and dealing with COVID every day. But if you talk to healthcare workers that work in a hospital or they're in primary care, especially that are seeing COVID, some primary cares have said, no, I'm not seeing any COVID. You ask them about this. Now, these are the same people you trust when you have a heart attack, when you have a stroke, when your kid gets sick. These are the same people you trust, so please trust us again at this time. It's going to be 99% of us that are seeing this are going to say the same thing. Strategy number one, get vaccinated. But when you start to get vaccinated on a 2-shot deal, it's going to take 5 or 6 weeks before you're immunized. Okay, and that's one reason I would like a little bit of delay. We have school teachers calling us last night, me and my wife, saying, I think I'm going to get the vaccine tomorrow, but when will I be safe? Do you think I should go to school or not go to school and teach? And so that's number one strategy. But we got to have other strategies that we got to use during surges. Once again, double red flag. When is this double red flag? This is not going to be the only surge, guys. We're going to have another one probably, and when will that be? I don't know. But we've got to have other strategies, and we've got to have the ability to back away some. And so do we want to shut down businesses, or do we want to just put them on pause for a week and let something get better? I think if you, once again, do it right, do it wrong, do it wrong. What hurts a business more? A long slowdown from a situation, or just having a couple of weeks where you limit the people coming in, you ask them to wear a mask or something like that. So I'm not ever going to be on one side or the other of these issues, because a broken clock's right twice a day. I feel the same way with these extremes on either end. They're rarely going to be right. What we've got to do is we've got to look at these different strategies. And even with masks work. If they didn't, then why have we used them for the past 100 years in the operating rooms, right? Are we going to undo 100 years of germ theory and get rid of Louis Pasteur and everything else? Listen, masks work. The hard thing is masks have to be done the right way. You know, you take an operating room. Nobody goes in the operating room, whether during hours of operation or afterwards for cleaning or maintenance, without a mask on. It never gets contaminated. So the thing is, everybody has to wear them. And Bill and I talked about this. Can we get everybody to do them? Yeah. It can't be down here. It can't be a gator that the coach is pulling on and off. You know, because guess what? They're getting contaminant on their hands every time they pull it on and off from the moisture, and then they touch something. So they got to be done right. That's what makes them very difficult. So you can have a great strategy, and Bill used to be a coach, you know, and so you can have a great play, but you got to have a team to execute it, right, Bill?
That's right.
And so when you look at strategies, can you expect a kindergarten class and preschool to be able to effectively wear a mask as well as you can high school seniors and so forth? So that's why it's going to take a different strategies at different levels. One thing, like, you know, that I've been able to do over the last year is work with these different entities and talk about what strategies work for them. We talked to a company. We said the boardroom is your operating room. Nobody enters the boardroom without a mask, without washing their hands. Yeah. And, you know, Bill can't be in his office with COVID, asymptomatic, for 3 hours, and then he's breathed all in the room, and then he invites me to come in, and we both put on our masks. Well, guess what I'm breathing in? I'm breathing in, you know, even though I've got an N95, only 5% is getting through there. My 5% is 100% of Bill's COVID high viral load air.
When you told me all this, though, Frank, he and I've had this conversation, you're almost proving to us that masks really don't work because we don't wear them with the efficacy that we need to wear them. I mean, and I want to correct you on one thing. You said the kindergartners, whatever. Kindergartners wear them right. It's the other kids that aren't wearing them right. Trust me, if that kindergarten teacher tells that child to wear that mask, they wear it the way they're supposed to. It's the older kids. But Frank, you're so right on all this, and I know you are, and you've done the studies. But here's the challenge that we have, and I want to come back to something I said earlier. Our students need us more now than ever before. The number of cases of suicide have gone up since this whole thing began, and even we go back, we're in the 4th year of craziness. So it makes it even more important for us. The well-being of students in their home, making sure they get fed, making sure they're not being abused. I mean, all those things are serious concerns of ours. We lost 200 students last year. We don't know anything about where they are. I mean, they just disappeared. And that is very concerning us. We've hired a safety officer just to try to track them down, and we've tracked some of them down. But our concern is watching these kids, and we know they're going to be better and safer with us. I'm going to come back to something you said, Tom. It's the employees that we really have to be mindful of. And again, are we doing everything we can to keep our employees safe? Well, right now versus this time last year, we've got the vaccine out there. And I don't even want to get into the argument about the vaccine. The vaccine works. I mean, if you don't believe anything else, if you got 90% of the people that are in a hospital are unvaccinated, I mean, I'd take those odds.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a no-brainer. And so we've tried to encourage our employees to do that.
Why? And I'll ask this to both of you, because we've already said this several times. Dr. Frank just said, I don't want to take sides. You've mentioned, Bill, politics, atheist, Christian, Republican. Why has this become so politicized? Why, in vaccines and masks, why have they become so politicized?
You want to take that, or you want me to give you my short? Because he and I've had this conversation.
I'd like to hear from both of you, yeah.
You go first, Frank, because I'm probably going to get myself in trouble.
Well, you know, I think it has a lot to do with just the way our society is nowadays with social media. And even before that, I remember time, you guys do too, I remember time before we had 24-hour news networks. I remember CNN coming on, we're like, this is so boring. Who's going to sit and watch the news? So we've almost had to fabricate, and I don't mean fabricate like lie, but we've almost had to create news. And if you watch any of them, Fox, CNN, any of them, you'll see where they're like news alert, and it's the same thing they told you an hour ago, but they try to keep us hooked that we got to do that. Social media has kind of taken off on that and supersized it, or whatever the word is. And so everybody has something to talk and to argue about. And I'll just say this, somebody asked me this. I just got a call from a company wanting us to work on a wellness program for them. We have a company called Vitality Pro, and we work on building wellness strategies. And obviously, COVID has come in there, and we've worked with companies and other type of, corporations, et cetera, about building these kind of strategies. If Governor DeSantis said, "Hey, can you build us something like you talked about? You got this warning system, you got this flag system for COVID, and you're building a mathematical algorithm showing us what kind of strategies we should use when we have this kind of numbers that come out through the mathematics." Happy to work with him at the state level. But the same thing is if Biden called, and said, "Would you guys work?" I told somebody the other day that I was a Republican or I was a Demopublican. The thing is, I'm an American. And personally, I'm a Christian. I'm a person of belief, and that's probably what Bill and I share the most in common. We got to stop letting all this hype and letting this distrust of one another and distrust of our government, distrust of political figures, which Bill kind of gets put in that. I may, after this interview, I may get put in that too, and I hope not.
I'm gonna send your email address to some of my favorite email recipients.
Yeah, I don't want that. And somebody asked me if I go and get on a debate with another doctor in town who I know and I like and I appreciate, and I said no, I would not do that. I would not do a debate because debates are entertaining, but they don't bring about any real productivity. What we need to do is work together, and Bill and I agree and disagree probably 50% of the time. But he and I, because we do that, we both grow, we both learn. I mean, just 30 minutes before we came on, we were talking, he was talking about these kids, because on one end of the spectrum, he's got kids that aren't in such a good situation at home. And yes, the school by default kind of helps take a lot of those roles for that kid or that teenager. But on the other end of the spectrum, you got some kids that have a good functional home and aren't at high risk. So we're talking about these strategies with him, but he and I disagree as much as we agree, but we're able to talk together and both of us learn and come out with solutions. So if I had a chance to talk with this doctor that's totally opposite of me, and we provided solutions and we could grow from the experience and our society and community would benefit from that, great. But I do think because of the hype of the news networks and now with the internet and all that kind of stuff, we just want to produce stuff and we like emotion. One of my friends in Australia calls us the excited states of America. We're just all emotion. We're all emotion, and we've forgotten how to logically think through this thing. I'll tell you what, I've had people that have disagreed with me and have called me, as an ER doctor in the past, I've been called everything in the book. I don't like it, but I have had people, even at my church or friends of mine or neighborhoods, think that, call me names, laugh at me when I'm wearing a mask, or whatever like that, even when I had COVID. And I don't think they knew that I was so sick, but they were kind of making fun of me. They're calling now, and the first thing they're saying is, "I'm sorry, but my SATs are 89%. I need your help, Frank." Listen, we're going to help anybody. We're going to help anybody because, we're humans, and all of us need each other right now. In America, we're Americans. So first thing we need to do, Tom, I don't know the whole reason why we get polarized, but we got to stop polarizing each other. We got to start loving each other and caring for each other.
At least working together.
That's it. That's
at least working together.
And there's going to be, and again, I mentioned this in the article that we had put in the News Herald Sunday, is that we're going to look, history's going to show how we handle this. And right now, it's not going to show us very favorably the way we're arguing with each other, like you said. And our issue and our problem is that we are modeling for our students what we want them to do, and God forbid they have this kind of situation later on when we get past this, and they're going to look back and say, well, how did they handle it? And I'm not proud of it. I think social media is the first thing Dr. Merritt talked about, has twisted this country so much you can't tell what's truth and what's not truth. There's going to be a lot of people out there that are going to look back and say, why didn't I listen to the science, like Dr. Merritt's talking about getting the vaccine. We all know people, friends that have passed away because, look, how many of us weren't praying or begging for a vaccine when this was at its peak and worst? I was one of them. I know Frank was one of them, praying for a vaccine. And then all of a sudden we get the vaccine. Now we're going to argue whether or not it works. And look, you don't want to get the vaccine, fine, but you got to realize that there are a lot of wonderful people that have died that didn't even have the chance to get the vaccine.
It's true.
And it's just sad. There are too many people out there that think they know it all, telling everybody else what they need to know, and they're gonna have problems later on in life. I mean, they are. They're gonna have issues with how they dealt with this. Yeah. And so our concern for our students is this, and I will tell you this, and I'll tell any parent that's listening. You don't think your child's going to be safe at school, you should keep them home. I don't want you to. I think they're safer than school. Than they are at home or driving around. Look up the number of statistics of automobile accidents, of pool accidents, of falls for children and everything. I mean, and kids have been getting COVID. Before the Delta variant came around, they've been getting COVID. And Dr. Merritt said, this is more prevalent, this is more contagious. I have no doubt. But here's what would happen right now, Tom. If I said we were going to stop school from starting for 2 weeks. You know what the first phone calls I'd get? Frank, you should get this because of who's above you right now. What's the first phone call I'm going to get? Whose picture's above you?
I don't know which one. I can look.
Bear Bryant. I'm going to get the football parents and football coaches want to know if I'm going to let them keep practicing. That's the first phone call I'm going to get. I mean, I'm not making this up.
Wait, but you're going to let them practice football because that's outside and it's safe. You know, it's safer.
I know, but what I'm saying is that's the priority of our parents and our kids. That's the focus. Then the volleyball is going to want to know if football can practice, can volleyball practice? Volleyball can practice, can the golf team practice? Can the basketball team start their conditioning? I mean, can the band start practicing? I mean, it doesn't end, and that's the thing in my job. Everything has an effect and an impact on everything else. I mean, everything does.
And I'll say this: what Bill's talking about is the fact that he's going to get a lot of backlash, and hopefully I won't for coming on. You know, I'm not in an elected role, and I don't make final decisions with Bill.
Sharon just posted your phone number on Facebook.
Good. I like that. I'll go buy a new phone this afternoon. No, you know, and this is where Bill and I are going to disagree. We're going to agree to disagree. You know, Bill has his information, and he sees, once again, this one side of the spectrum where he thinks kids are better at school. I think the majority of kids aren't, quote, better at school. We'd agree to disagree. I don't think the school or the state or whatever has to raise our kids for us. I think that's predominantly, but I do understand there's some situations at homes that are different. So I get that. But what I'm saying here is, as unpopular as it would be, as much of a nuisance as it'd be, inconvenience, yes, people would have to shuffle their schedules around. I'm saying it's the right thing to do. Because we've got a surge, and I'm going to go back to numbers. You got a surge that we've never seen before. We didn't see it last year. It wasn't like this last year. We've got a surge that is happening greater than last year, and that's on top of vaccinated people. 50% of our state is vaccinated. That's on top of 50% of our state vaccinated. That's on top of probably about 30,000 deaths of older, weaker, so to speak. You know, I'm not saying that rude, but you know what I'm saying. So we've already kind of culled the population out, and the people that lived through it, and this thing's able to do this again. And so to take 2 weeks off and say it's an inconvenience, have some hate mail, have some hate email, you know, yes, football is a little upset because of schedule. You know, I'm telling you, you're going to deal with it longer in a less way. You're going to deal with it longer than just going and dealing it early. You know, you got to pay it earlier, you got to pay it later. But to go back to Coach Kelly's words, do it right, do it light, do it wrong, do it long. Last year we messed up an entire football season. Now, we're going to go back to football since you mentioned Barry Bryant. We messed up an entire football season because we didn't do it right. And I'm just afraid you're looking at the Delta variant being so much stronger. And the good news is it can get out of here pretty quick. Once again, citing the studies over in Britain or the UK, whatever you want to call it, it can be gone. But they handle it right to help that happen. It's not going to go away by itself. We're going to have to help it.
But Frank, let me interject. What Britain did, they shut everything down. They didn't just stop school. They shut everything down. And so,
I know you don't want to do that.
Well, I have no control over that. I don't even have the authority to shut schools down. That would be up to the school board. I mean, and so again, I'm going to say if the hospitals came to us or the health department came to us and said, look, we really think this is the best strategy to do, we'd do it in a heartbeat. I mean, I think the board would vote on a heartbeat because it's totally up to the board. But right now, we're not looking at it. We haven't had a conversation about that.
And you get no guidance either at this point.
No, we're getting no guidance to do that.
Okay.
I think at this point, to be honest with you, you look at the hospitals, and you don't need to be talking to the CEOs. I think they do a great job of running the business of acute care, but they're business people. They got business degrees, MBAs, and so forth. Who you need to talk to are really going to be the people that are the lead of the hospitalist programs at both hospitals, the doctors. Okay, let's talk to the doctors and nurses that are taking care of these people that understand. I talked to a great friend of mine, Dr. Amir Hagihat. He was on the news last night. I think his point, to me, Amir Hagihat is probably the most influential and probably the most informed doctor in this town. He's a cardiologist, but he and I have been talking a lot about people coming in with one health condition, and then they get COVID, and they're getting sick or dying from the COVID, and even in the hospitals. And so, yes, talk to people, but talk to the right people. You can't talk to a business person. You can talk to them about the business in the hospital, yes, but let's talk to the clinicians, and whether that be the doctors, the nurses, and the scientists. I think if you talk to those people that are taking care of patients in the hospitals, once again, you're going to get a clear picture of what needs to happen.
Dr. Merritt, I know you've got to be hard out here at 2:00, so we're gonna try and wrap things up. Let's go back real quickly if we can. Just take a minute or so to regroup and talk about what people should be doing. I guess number one is go get the vaccine, and number two, wear masks when you can.
Yes, sir. The masks work, and it's not just they work or they don't work. The more everybody does it right, I wear my mask, it protects you guys more. When y'all wear your mask, it protects you more because you're actually catching, the breath and the moisture right there when it comes out versus when it's already in the room. So, it isn't, everybody wants it to be a light switch. It works or doesn't work. It works. The more we do it right, the better it works. And that's proof because we still do that in operating rooms. If it doesn't work, then we need to stop wearing the face masks in the operating rooms. And I don't think anybody's going to sign up for a surgery tomorrow and tell their surgeon and the surgery crew, no, you don't have to wear a mask during my operation.
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen either. Bill, anything?
Not my surgery.
Anything you'd like to talk to parents one more time here about that you can tell them about school? And as right now, we're still looking like starting on the 10th, which is next week, right?
Just make the decision that's best for you and your family. I wholeheartedly encourage you to look at the vaccine and get that as quickly as possible. If you haven't done that, just know that we want everyone to stay safe. If you have health issues, your child has health issues, get with your doctor and decide what to do. I just know all the issues that so many of our children face, and you got to understand, we have in our schools that are non-charters, we have over 65% of our kids are in living conditions that are not the kind of living conditions any of us want our children living in.
Sure.
And so that's a large number for us. That is a huge number. That's probably 15,000 of our kids that are in situations that we know they're better off with us. And Doc's right. I wish I was superintendent of the district, that every parent was involved and every parent was key what was going on, and every parent was able to support their children the way you're able to support your boys, Doc. But that's not the situation we find ourselves in. And so I still believe that our students are better off with us back in school.
Okay. Gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for your time. This has been very informative. I hope we've answered some questions for folks out there that wanted to know what they should be looking at as they get ready to send their kids back to school. And of course, if you have questions, the best thing I can tell you is keep informed and go to I don't mean to say this the way I'm going to say it, but go to legitimate news sources. Just don't go on Facebook and look for the latest thing that pops up, because honestly, there's no filter there. Nobody's fact checking that particular social media site. And if you really want to make sure you're getting the right information, go to legitimate news sources. And I'm not necessarily talking about the 24-hour talking heads yelling at each other all day type thing. That's politicized, and they're not neutral sites. So make sure you're going to the legitimate news organizations to get your information. I'm sure there's going to be some developments over the next few days and weeks coming out of Washington, and of course coming out of Tallahassee, as to how we'll proceed if this thing gets worse over the next few days and weeks. So make sure you stay tuned to your local news organizations. We'll keep you informed. Gentlemen, I can't thank you enough. Superintendent Bill Husfelt and Dr. Frank Merritt, thanks so much for being here with us today. It's been very informative.
Stay well, Frank.
Thank you, guys.
All
Take
right,
care.
thank you all very much.
Thanks,
Hey,
Tom.
thanks for joining us here on this 13 Now live broadcast. And don't forget to join us tonight at 5, 6, and 10 for our newscast this evening. See you later.